Welcome to the ObstacleDominator.com podcast featuring Benny Gifford and Brakken Crocker. Whether you want to dominate your next obstacle race or just get started in obstacle racing, you're about to discover every tactic you need to know, from gear to training to nutrition. Get the latest tips from the trenches, get your questions answered, and show up at your next obstacle race ready to dominate. And now, here's Beni and Brakken.
Sitting back here is the power bottom on this side of it. This is going to be my normal position, but then I'm going to lean forward and really give her a little bit.
Hey, welcome back to Obstacle Dominator. That's right, guys, we're back. All right, so we'll explain all of this. This is just a quick intro. I don't know what episode this is. It's like 17 or something crazy like that.
Double digits for sure.
Yes, we will explain.
Suck it, Matt Davis.
Suck it, Matt B. Davis. Even though we just went 4 weeks, I think, with nothing. We explain why. Guys, the guide, believe it or not, it's coming out soon, okay? We promise.
From the lips of Ben Greenfield, it is coming.
It is coming. I don't know why Ben specifically. He's not here, but Ben.
He's the boss.
Oh, he is the boss.
He's not my boss.
No,
he's
no.
our boss.
No, he's not. You say he's my boss?
I don't have a boss.
He's not my boss. No, this is
I'm
a three-way partnership. Nobody even knows who Ben is anymore in relation to this podcast. Probably half of our listeners haven't been around that long. Anyways, guys, this is a hilarious episode. It's fantastic. We cover why we were gone for the past few weeks. The guide is coming out. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to start building it up over these next few episodes. We're going to come out with it. And Brakken, I don't know. We're trying to make this intro quick. Anything else?
I wouldn't say it's hilarious. I would have gone with informative.
I don't know why hilarious. It just kind of.
It's hilarious.
Oh my God, guys.
You're going to love
funny.
it. It's rolling on the ground laughing the entire time.
No, he's right, though. It's not hilarious. There are some funny bits to it, but it's extremely informative. It's like probably one of our more content-filled episodes. And yeah, so
it's a really scary episode today, guys.
It's terrifying.
Terrifying.
We discovered some really, no, we just come up with a bunch of hook phrases. You won't believe. Wait till you get, no, wait, what is it? Watch till the end. You won't believe what Brakken does.
Number 7 will shock you.
Exactly. All right. Without further ado, here we go. Welcome. What's going on, guys? Coming to you live from Alabama. No, we're in Wisconsin. Brakken, why don't you address the very unique situation we have here?
Well, Benny flew in today, and we were able to put a podcast on for the first time in a while, but we do not have a space to do so. We are sitting right now in my parents' basement. Directly next door is the home we just purchased, but we are in the middle of rehabbing it. And there is no place to do so. The floor sanders are going nonstop. It's too loud. This is the only place where we can get Wi-Fi and some semblance of quiet. So we're down here in the basement, the workshop. We got drill presses. We have the plumbing stack. We have someone coming down the stairs right now, it sounds like. And we have bangers.
Ready-made stripper pole as well. And yes, neither of us actually know how to. It's kind of a weird approximation of Smoke on the Water, I think.
It was pretty good.
It was definitely off key. But anyways, just so you guys know right off the bat, the reason we haven't had one for so long is because, well, there are lots of reasons.
At least twofold.
At least two. My side of things, this is like the first time I've really been able to talk in weeks because I had 2 major dental surgeries. And when I say major, I mean like $55,000 worth of stuff. And so I can't chew anything for 6 weeks. It's all like liquids. And I blended a burger the other day because I was so sick of smoothies and yogurt and soup. And that was disgusting. Don't recommend it. But I'm just now able to actually emote and use my mouth for expression. And what about you, Brakken?
We've been in the process of moving. The moving was a hassle and a process, and we are still not fully into the other home because we decided to get the rehabbing done up front. Yeah. And so we're on week 5 of rehabbing this house and getting it fully move-in ready. And
why do you call it rehabbing? Like it's a living thing?
Yeah, I mean, we're not rebuilding it. We're not flipping it. We're rehabbing it. We're bringing it back to her.
I think that's called renovating.
You can call it renovating if you want.
Rehab. It's cool.
Yeah.
Just noticing language. I don't know. It's interesting.
We're renovating. Week 5 of renovations. And we should be in a week or less. So next week I should come to you from my brand new studio.
Ooh, is it going to look as good as his previous one? Who knows?
As this one, no. But as my other one, I'm going to shoot for a yes.
This is pretty rustic and pretty epic. Like what you were telling me? This is like
drill
a
press.
Drill press, right?
Small bandsaw off to your left. Miter saw down below. Got a good amount of tools here because we're just a blue collar Wisconsin family here.
That's us. Yeah.
You're gonna hear a lot of noises during this. You know, the plumbing stack comes right down through here. So anytime someone flushes a toilet, uses the sink, we're gonna hear it. Hear a little pitter patter of kids running upstairs. This is a pretty low budget.
It's pretty sweet. I feel cool down here.
Low budget production.
This is not actually a structural pole. This is where the duty is traveling right next to us. So we thought that it would be a great idea to have this in between us.
This pole is not naturally brown.
right. It's
years of use.
seeped through over the years. So, guys, we know there is a ton that we have missed, or not missed, just not been able to cover over the past 5 weeks. So we're gonna cover AT&T Stadium, which was an epic freaking race that Spartan decided to act as if did not exist for the most part. We're going to go over my new mile PR and how amazing that was for me. Brakken paced me. Brakken hit not a new PR, but you went out for a time trial on a mile and you hit a number you're really freaking happy with also.
Fastest I've run in probably 5 years.
Which is crazy because like 5 years ago, you were probably more in running shape. Maybe? No?
I was doing that type of training, yeah.
Yeah,
I think we'll dive into that. You hear the little pitter-patter of feet up there?
The little chilling?
Yeah, that's the 1-year-old.
I like that.
Sprinting around up there.
1-year-old? That's a heavy-sounding 1-year-old.
I mean, she takes after her mom.
Yeah.
Love you, Lisa. No.
Dude, don't act like she watches these.
She listens to all of them.
Oh, she does?
Yeah.
You told me that.
Yeah,
Hi, Lisa.
Gets her through her runs.
I didn't say it, Lisa. But she doesn't watch them.
No.
But then Brakken ran a freaking epic ultra.
My first trail ultra of my life.
Oh, dude, that's right. I forgot it was a trail one. And when I looked at your Strava thing and it said like 3,000 something feet elevation, which across 31 miles is not that much, but that's a lot when you add it to 31 miles, 31.1. Sorry.
Yeah. I want to get to that point later on when we get to that race.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And then
let's talk about Utah coming up. We have the biggest race of the US Series because it's the last one, and there are some points up for grabs that will determine who wins the series.
You know what's unfortunate? Forrest is not going to be able to do that race anymore because Jack Bauer just filled me in on how terrible the Fort Carson race was as far as the choice of terrain and the choice of the course design for that one. It was just, he said it was probably the worst course he's ever done in just sheer number of cactus, in like how loose and rocky and terrible the terrain was. Half the people that were there decided, I'm not even doing this. And they decided, I'm only going to do this one day instead of both race days. I don't know. Would you hear about it? Because you're nodding.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that. I think that this race kind of was like the epitome of a lot of the complaints we've had over the years about Spartan, is that sometimes they intentionally take you through things that are really nasty to run through rather than including it as kind of like a
sprinkled in.
Yes, an accoutrement to the course, you know?
Fancy.
So a lot of times you'll be running through stuff and you're like, all right, this is kind of cool. This is unique. And then like a half mile later, you're like, all right, we get it. You guys can build nasty courses. We can do nasty courses without being like intentionally hurtful. Like no one should ever get poison oak in a race.
Well, Bauer was telling me
hit a cactus in a race. You can hit nasty stuff, but let's avoid those. This seems like they targeted it.
Right. Bauer was telling me that the normal course directors were not on this, that they let the military people, because it was at the Fort Carson base or somewhere around the base, they let them pick it. So when you hear about that, it's like, okay, yeah, they're all about grit and toughness. So it makes sense that they would go and find all the worst stuff and just make you do this.
And I'm all for creating nasty courses, but I don't see that there's any need to intentionally put you through thorn bushes or through cacti. You know, I think that you can have nastiness without just stupidity. Right.
You can impart pain into a body without stabbing the body.
Right.
Like that's just unpleasant and not fun. I remember the Austin Sprint was my first race, and I was appalled that they chose the barbed wire section to go through just a cactus field. And so it was like, this is excessive. Like, it wasn't like, oh, there's one cactus here or there, and so you have to have your wits about you. It was, no, you're going to get up with cactus.
Yeah, that's exactly that. There's no need to do something intentionally hurtful.
Right.
make it miserable. It's the point of Spartan races to suffer, but suffer intelligently.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and Forrest made the decision that other people didn't. So Robert Killian showed up to race. Forrest showed up, and that was really it. The other Colorado crew, Tyler Veerman chose not to. Rhea chose not to. Rose Wetzel chose not to.
Kempson said no.
Kent day 2 showed up.
Yeah.
But he
was there day 1 and said no.
Yeah, he had the course beat down a little bit more for him day 2. And I don't know, it's unfortunate when you have to make that choice. Do I want to do my hometown race, or do I want to be smart and fresh for the next week? Because Utah is the final stop, and a lot of people have a lot of money and notoriety riding on where they wind up in the US Series. And to have to give up your hometown race kind of sucks.
So I don't know exactly where the points stand right now, but who is there anything that big that can happen?
Yeah, so Ryan Atkins would basically have to DNF to lose, or have something bad happen.
Okay.
He's going to win this thing.
He can finish in the top 15 and still win?
Yeah, because I don't know about that, but I think like top 10 he wins, or top whatever. But as the Jack Bauer episode showed us, he's one of the most consistent racers ever. A bad race for him is like 6.
I got 5th or 6th.
And 6 will get him the win.
Right.
But on the women's side, it's like a 20-some point gap from
Nicole and Lindsay.
Yeah, and Lindsay then Nicole.
Yeah. But that's as easy as
31 points, 36 points from first to second in the actual race divvy out of the points. And so whoever wins there between those two wins the series.
Right, because that's close enough to where a switch between first, second, or third could definitely mess with that.
Yeah, and then on the men's side, there are a lot of point standings that will switch.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the Dallas Stadium, because
let's go back in time.
Unfortunately, that did not exist. There was a live video, and I'm sure you found this at some point, but it's like 9 hours long, and it's just mounted cameras everywhere.
I did not go through it.
It might be worth it for you. Not so much for me, because there are a few times where, obviously if you're in the top like 3 or 4, there's a lot of coverage, especially when it's like one of the true live Spartans. But there are a few mobile cameras to where going through the gauntlet, you can watch yourself doing the ram burpees and stuff like that. Right. Those things are terrible. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, Spartan teamed up with Ram Roller, and they added this new obstacle where you do 15 burpees, but you do it with a Ram Roller. Is essentially a 55-pound foam roller that you can grip on the sides, and you have to do the entire burpee movement with that in your hands. So you drop down, you touch your chest to it, and then you come up and you either do a snatch to get overhead, or you do a clean and then a press. And that was a game changer for my race. Well, I don't know. There were a lot of game changers in there that made it, that I placed where I did. But first I want to hear, what did you end up?
I ended up 3rd in this.
Okay.
And I had the biggest blow up explosion I've ever had at a super or less distance.
Really?
Yeah. My last 10 to 12 minutes were just like, I was just bleeding time.
That would be that last long, terrible stair climb, right? Where the stairwell, where we did this.
Basically, from the end of the sandbag on, I just leaked time.
Okay. Yeah, I don't, because I remember you saying that you were taking it real slow on those ram burpees, because you were like, there's no way I can catch the guy in front of me, but I'm going to make sure nothing happens from this point forward.
Yeah, the race started cool. I liked the start of the race. We had like 400 meters running.
Yeah.
With just some walls to go over, and then we hit the assault bike.
That was interesting.
And I just kind of struggled with the assault bike. I struggled with my display. I struggled with my cadence, and I got off that in 11th or 12th place.
Oh, wow. Really?
And yeah.
Oh, shoot. We must have got an outfit around this. I realized as I was spinning or whatever, assaulting, I thought I was the only one standing up, and I was like, all right, that should be enough proof that Beni, no, it's not faster. So
we'd hop off that assault bike. You ran like 20 feet, turned, and like 60 meters away was the A-frame.
Yeah.
As I got to that turn, the leaders were dismounting the A-frame and running into the building.
That quickly?
Yeah.
That's a big gap already.
Yeah. By the time I got to it, they were inside the building, out of sight.
Oh, man.
I couldn't see anyone. I caught bubbles at the A-frame.
Wow, that means you must have flown through the assault bike, or you just did terrible.
I think it was a mix of both. I think people hit it hard, and I just had like this like stumbling experience on it. And then I kind of like,
reel them all back in?
Yeah, but I got a little desperate. My goal was never let Killian out of sight because his second half is so strong and his climbing so strong that he has to be in range so that I can make little moves on him so that I can make up for his climbing.
Right.
And I'd never run Kent or Killian down, really. I've beat both of them in races, but it's been in races where I executed perfectly. I never had a race where I ran them down.
Right.
And so I thought, well, this is really bad.
Right.
And I caught them at the field for the Atlas carry, which was only like 10 minutes into the race.
Okay.
And I think I just did it way too quickly.
You hammered that section.
So then the next, right from there, we ran all the way to the top, and I ran on Killian the whole way up. And I got to the top and thought,
paid for it.
Yeah, I burned a few too many matches. So then the rest of the race just got really bad, but we had built up such a gap.
Right.
By the time we got to the sandbag carry, I was, I think, 7 seconds off the lead.
Yeah.
And we were like a minute 40.
Wait. At the sandbag, you were only 7 seconds off Killian?
Yeah. Kent had the lead at the time.
Oh, Kent. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. You were only 7 seconds behind Kent at sandbag?
Started it.
Wow. So you really fell apart in that last section. Because there was only like 10 minutes
left. I finished it like
point.
25 or 30 seconds behind them.
Wow.
I blew up during it. And then I got in no man's land. They were off racing, and we were 2 minutes ahead of fourth place.
I want to talk about no man's land because people always talk about racing strategy and the mentality of you cannot let that separation create, that you can't have that gap. You have to keep them in sight or else it's over. Which if you're looking at physics, it makes no sense to me because it's like, I'm going to run at my maximum ability the entire time. And I'm aware of the mental side of things, how it can give you an adrenaline boost and, keep you in contact longer. But this is my theory. When people ask me about my racing strategy, I say all of that is out the window for me because that only matters when you are racing the field, not the course. And you're not racing the field until you are actually a person who's fighting for first, second, or third. Because other than that, your goal is to get from point A to point B as fast as possible and screw everybody else. When you're actually in fitness contention with other people for first, second, and third, I think that's when it actually matters to be having that kind of race strategy. Because otherwise, if you're not actually in that contention, you're already doing your absolute maximum just to get 4th through 10th. And so those strategies don't seem to matter as much. Yeah?
I agree with that for everything other than technical running.
So what do you mean by technical running? You mean like technical terrain?
Anything technical where your stride has to break. And what I think happens there is that you can be near someone who is better through going downstairs or better at taking corners than you, and you just start mirroring what they're doing. And you pick up a second or two on every turn or staircase simply because you're doing something better than you'd be able to do alone.
Because you are watching them do it and
creek running
instantly.
In an OCR race or scree running down a mountain. That's the kind of thing you can be running at your max capacity with technique A and your max capacity following someone with technique B and be 30 seconds different in time.
That is a great point. I've never thought about that.
Yeah, you end up matching what they're doing. And then there is that little piece of us that most people can't quite access unless they're in the heat of a battle. Like you are working as hard as you think you can work, and then someone passes you and you realize, all right, there is a little bit that I wasn't aware of. So those two things combined. And the stadiums really personify that because you hit technique-based obstacles, rep-based obstacles, strength-based, and like a ram roller. You might be doing something and see someone snatching next to you while you're cleaning and they're outworking you. You switch to that and now you start picking up time.
So, I'm so glad you pointed that out because I found this theme that's been consistent through my whole life, which is where subconsciously, like my higher self or my soul or my spirit or whatever seems to get things intuitively, even if my brain doesn't understand them. And I've learned to just do them. And then along the way, somebody who has the actual knowledge experience will say it. I'm like, oh, that's why I did that. Every single obstacle that I was next to Jack during, or anytime I come up to an obstacle, I pass all stations and I go right next to whoever it is that I'm going to be next to during that workout. So if it's the 5 burpees and Atlas carry, whatever, I bypass all stations and I go right next to somebody else. So for the Ram burpees, I went up to Jack and I went right next to him and I made sure that I, was next to him the entire time. And so there's that aspect of what you just described. And then the other side of what you were saying about how, actually, I guess this is the same thing about the kind of boost you can have when you're next to somebody. Mm-hmm. That was such an incredible race for me because first of all, it was, for many reasons, it was the race that I was supposed to do the worst at out of the stadium series because it has the most climbing, which is my worst attribute of obstacle racing. It was the longest race.
It was a mountain sprint.
Right. Do you know what the elevation profile was? Does anybody? Because you can't really
No, the year before, people got between 1,600 and 2,100 feet. So 18 to 2,000 feet is what it was last year.
Right.
And this year was longer.
Yeah.
This was a 38-minute stadium race with over 2,000 feet of gain.
So
that's a mountain sprint.
So climbing, it was a longer race, and the field was deeper there than anywhere else. Like you had to fight to be in the top 15.
That's probably the second best field we've ever seen.
So I was expecting I'll be 14th or 15th here. And I definitely didn't think I was going to be anywhere near Jack. And I caught Jack right before he missed his spear throw. And then I forgot during the race that in a stadium race, it's only 15 burpees. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's over. Because if I caught him already, or like I was maybe 10 seconds behind him and I watched it, I was about to throw mine when he missed. I was like, if I've already caught him at this point, there's no way he's going to come back from 30. I forgot it was 15. And so I'm, I'm not lollygagging. I'm still fighting because I'm aware of that mental gap of if I can get out of his sight, it's just going to, especially with Jack, because he's a mental case. The only time he ever screws up is
that true, Jack Bauer?
He knows
a mental midget.
He is a head case, dude. He's so fit. All his numbers in training justify fantastic performances. And then I can't tell you how many races I will be like playing catch up the entire time. And then I start to see him, and I see him check over my shoulder. And the second he looks over his shoulder, he starts sucking. And every time I pass him, I'm like, Jack, don't you freaking let me beat you. Because, we're buddies. And even though, yes, I want to beat him, I'm like, I don't want to beat you because you're head casing yourself. I want to actually beat you. But anyway, so I turn around during the sandbag carry towards the end of it, and I see two bodies that I did not expect to see. First is Jack. Or no, I did expect to see Jack, but I didn't expect to see him that quickly because I forgot it was 15 burpees. And then the other one I see is Victor Quesada, which we'll talk about later. But Victor started an entire wave back. So at what, 60 seconds?
60 seconds.
60 seconds behind us, and he's catching us at the sandbag carry. And I'm like, look, the crap. But anyways, back to Jack. Jack reels me back in on the farmer's carry, and he passes me, and then it's right into the field. And I'm thinking, there's no way I can catch him because I'm falling apart right now. And he beats me out of the ram roller burpees, and then I think it was all because of that boost of being next to him, or maybe he thought he was just done, or he was trying to play it safe. We had the rings and then those little bag things, and I passed him on the rings, and someone got a video of it. If you are that person, please send it to me because this is such a good moment. I passed him on the rings, and there's a picture of it. You can't really tell what's happening. And I tell Jack as I'm swinging, hold on. The rule is you have to touch that first ring, right? No. Okay. Well, I could have jumped farther, but I go to dive out. Jack is on the rings and he's being careful because our hands are so sweaty. And I jump out, and as I'm diving, I whack the first ring just in case. And I pass him on the rings and then beat him in the last 2 seconds. And as I'm passing him on the rings, I'm like, Jack, don't you let me beat you. And I end up beating him. But whatever. The whole point of that is I had a great time, and it was incredible. And it was, I think, my best performance out of the stadium series. And I felt freaking fantastic about that.
Yeah, it was a really good race for you. And you fought all the way through.
Yes.
Stadium races are really easy because of how just gut-wrenchingly redline they are, that it's easy to back away off the flame a little bit when it gets really, really bad.
I wanted to ask you, because you're talking about the gut-wrenching flame. I love short course because at the same time that it is unbelievably painful, that same reason turns into a form of meditation that your brain can't really think as much.
You get really raised on.
Right, which is fantastic, and I love that. And it gives you this amazing sense of euphoria at the end because of that 40 minutes of silence you essentially just had. Or not, it's not silent, it hurts and your brain is screaming at you, but it's one scream instead of 1,000 things. You just did something that was completely the opposite of that. I looked at your heart rate across that 50K, and it said your average, or sorry, 50K, right? Ultra?
Yeah, 50K. Yeah. 31.1 miles.
And your average heart rate was 145 beats per minute, which is 1 beat below my aerobic foundation.
Okay.
And
no, I have a lower max heart rate than you do, I assume.
What's your aerobic base range?
My high-end aerobic is 148.
Okay. But the point is you were aerobic. Average for the entire race.
I was aerobic for most of the race. It's hard to do anything but that. A couple climbs I got anaerobic.
Right.
And there was one stretch of flat running from 22-ish, 22 and a half to 25 was relatively flat. And I got a little too
Excited?
I raced that section. It's hard to race 31.
Right.
Because like I went in with a very specific strategy. Mile 1 through 10, I wanted to stay 143 or under for heart rate.
Okay.
And then 11 through 20, I wanted to stay 148 or under.
Okay.
So by the time I got to 20, I wanted to be at my upper aerobic range.
Right.
And then with cardiac drift, that'll start to raise, and that just happens. And from that point on, I just figured I'd get to 20 and either throw off the reins and just get after it, or survive. Whatever's available,
right.
Just empty the tank at that point.
But this was like uncharted territory for you before, so you've never done that.
Completely uncharted. I've done long runs building up to this,
right,
to figure out where I wanted my heart rate. But it's just everyone I've talked to, everyone says that you just can't go out too hard in an ultra.
Yeah.
You can go out and it feels great, and then suddenly 10 miles, and I messed around with it on some long runs. I'd be sitting at 148, 150, 148, 150. And then for just like 2 miles, I'd drop, 155, and I'd feel great doing it and feel fast. And then like 6 miles later, by like 14 or 15, my legs would just tell me like, yep, you made a mistake.
Yeah.
And that was enough in training to realize, if during a 17-mile run, I'm already starting to pay for just 2 miles that are too fast, I can't ever get to that point before 20 in the 31-mile race.
Well, the fact that you're still leaving 11.1 miles after that to play around with is so risky.
It's a long time to blow up, but it's also a long time to make up ground if you've been a little bit too cautious that first part.
So with the difference in something like a 37-minute balls to the wall blow up, but you have to push through type race.
That's Ayla.
Is that Ayla?
Ayla stomps like a Sasquatch.
I love that you can tell. So who was just somebody was over at my house the other day, and I could hear running around upstairs, and I was like, oh, I could tell which one of the dogs it was. And he was like, how can you tell which dog it is? And same thing with kiddos, I guess.
Yeah, Ayla sounds like an overweight adult walking.
Dude, the 1-year-old, right. Sounds super heavy.
No, that Mira's 1.5. Ayla is 4.
Okay, cool. Gotcha.
She walks like a Yeti.
So you're ending both of those races and existing during both of those races in a lot of pain. But it's a different type of pain. And I've experienced almost exclusively the short course, like quiet yet screaming mind type thing. Never really experienced the I have to go for 4 hours and 11 minutes here while your body's experiencing the pain, but it's different. So how are those different?
You know what the crazy part is it didn't feel any different.
Really?
Yeah. And we both ran a mile prior to this. And I did a mile 8 days out from this race. 10 days out, I ran a 1-mile road race. And that race and the 31-mile race were no different.
Really?
Yeah.
No different mentally?
Mentally and pain. I mean, there's a different pain, but like you got to the halfway point of both races and felt like, this isn't like easy, but I'm still kind of in control. I got to 2/3 of the way through, and it was like,
hanging on.
This is really bad.
Yeah.
And I could either just like make an excuse and ease it in, or make that decision to stay on it, kind of like you made during yours. And then it just hurts from there on in, but it's just awful. And that last, 600 meters of the mile were no different than the last 6 miles of the ultra, in that it was just a dark place, and every step cost you mentally. But like time was, the time is relative kind of thing. That's when it first like really hit me, was 6 or 7 miles would disappear the same way that 600 meters would disappear in a mile.
Okay, the range of things going across my face right now are because I was picturing, that was the mile time trial that we did. That was the first time I've understood what people talk about in the running community about.
Before we get into this, I just want to say Beni nailed his mile time trial. Mile time trials are rough. The mile race is people say the 800 is the most painful race. I don't believe that. I ran the 800 my whole life. I think the mile is way worse than the 800, because the 800, by the time you're hurting, you're kicking to the finish. But I mean, it gets really bad, but you have 200 meters of really bad.
Yeah.
In the mile, by the time you're hurting, you're starting your 3rd lap.
Right.
And you have 2 more laps to go. And it's the highest combination of intense pain and longest duration you have to keep your intense pain for.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy to back off that flame in the mile. And we talked about before the time trial, as we were standing there at the line, it's going to get bad here and here. And these are the 3 decision points. and Beni made each one. And you could see it happen. You could feel him start to pull off me a little bit, and I would just bark out something, and Beni would get right back on, reattach, and he did it.
Dude, thank you. He paced me, and it's hands down my favorite training experience I've ever had in 4.5 years of doing this.
So get back to your talking about you access new levels.
Well, I was thinking about it in relation to what you were saying about how that experience for me, that immediately became my new favorite thing because of that place that my brain went where it's never gone before. And so when you were saying it's the same thing, I was like, it's the same thing for 4 hours and 11 minutes. But then you ended it by saying it's relative and that the 60 meters go by like 6 miles do in there. So it's the same thing, but time is almost warped. Like you're not, the place your brain goes, that incredibly creative place at the beginning of lap 3 where you're like, oh, I could quit now. I could this and that. It's raining. This is not the best, whatever. So it's not that you're doing that the entire time, is it?
It's at the same point. So we got to the halfway point, and you're hurting, but it's still manageable. And then during lap 3, it gets really bad. And that's how it was. I got to the halfway point. I got to 15.55 miles and took my split. And I was thinking, like, I'm tired, but I don't think I've done anything that I can't do again.
Okay.
Like I think I can get tough here. And
I remember you thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah. And then you get to that 2/3 of the way through where you're not done with lap 3, but you're in the middle of lap 3. That's where I was in this race.
Where the oh shit starts.
21, 22 for me. And it was like, I need to buckle down. I always get this thought in races. For whatever reason, I always think like, if I look back on the race and I lost it someplace, it's right here.
Yeah.
Like this is that decision point. If I look back, this was the moment I lost it. And that was 2021 for me, where I thought, all right, this is that moment. If I don't do this now, I'm going to be really pissed off. And so I really got to work. And that was like that third lap for you.
Yeah.
And so, no, it wasn't the whole time. In fact, I got through 17 without feeling real effort.
So, okay. So I'm going to tell my Miles story just because I want to ask a real specific question that you guys won't get unless I preface it with the story. So the 1 mile time trial, I was out in Wisconsin like I am now. He was going to pace me. The goal was, okay, I want you to pace me for exactly a 5-minute mile, and then I'll kick in the last 100 meters and just shave like a second or maybe 2 seconds off because I just want to break 5. I've never broken 5 before.
Which I said I will do, and I lied.
What?
I was going to pace for 4:58.
You did?
Because you always leave yourself a little wiggle.
Oh, I didn't know you did.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you kept me on for 5.
No.
And then I just was able to kick.
No, so 75 seconds per lap would be 5 flat.
Okay.
We went out in 73.
Okay.
73 gave us 2 seconds right off the bat. Plus the first 100 meters is a little quicker. But
yeah. Well, I'm glad we did.
A little bit of wiggle room.
I lost some time there at the beginning of that third lap.
Everyone does.
Like I just thought, it was funny because I didn't know if you'd sped up or if I was just hurting so much that now maintaining the same thing was making you pull away from me. But I'd always heard descriptions of the mile experience, and I finally feel like I'm indicted in the running community, not because I was able to break 5, but because of the actual experience I had, which if you wouldn't have been there, I don't think I would have had the same thing. I wouldn't have been aware of it. But Brakken talks about 2 points where you have to make a decision to get the hell in or get the hell out. And it was at the beginning of the third lap where you realize I have 2 more laps of this and it's really hurting. And I like getting real clear because people always say mind, mental game and this and that, but they never get down to like, what does that actually mean and look like? And for me, and it sounds like everybody, your brain gets wickedly creative on all the different excuses and legitimate reasons why you should stop and just do it another day. Because the whole point of this is I'm trying to get my best time. And, I ate all this crap at this country music festival I was working the day before. And I'm lactose intolerant. I ate all this stuff. And it's raining right now. These conditions aren't good. I need to stop.
Yeah, it was cold and rainy when we did.
Right. And so you just have to ignore it, even though logically it all completely makes sense. And I'm a very logical person, and I make decisions based off logic most of the time. And so it was so hard to just ignore it. Actually, honestly, it was just the pressure of, Brakken's here. I can't just bail. What a waste of time. And then the other point is, was it the last 200 meters of the last lap?
I talked to you at 400, 300, and 200 to go.
I remember I'm coming around the corner. and you said I had started backing off his shoulder, and you looked over and you're like, stay right on my shoulder, so you got to stay with me.
So if you catch me now, you will break 5.
Right, and then I caught you coming around the beginning of the last 100, and if you pass me, I think you just reiterated you'll break 5.
Yep.
And it's so funny because in my head I was thinking, in that last 100, it's the finish line syndrome. I'll just take off. And I did take off, and I'm pretty sure takeoff looked like nothing.
No, you looked fast your last 200 meters. You actually did.
Okay, because in my mind, even with all the chaos that was in there, I was thinking I'm probably barely actually.
Well, your last lap was 71 seconds. So it's 4:44 pace.
Okay.
And a good chunk of that came in the last 150 meters. So you were moving.
But it was incredible. But the specific things I took away from it was I'd never been to that place before to where my brain was that potently giving me legitimate excuses to quit or why I should stop. And before we started, I told you how the 5K is my favorite one because you don't really get there. For me, I don't anyways. Or maybe I haven't pushed to the level that I should like I would with the pacer. But in a 5K, you go into it slowly. You eventually get to a high level of pain, and then you just hang on. That's been my experience so far. The miles, you're going to die within 2 minutes. You're going to be in this horrible place, and it's just death. And there's no way to cheat around it. But now it's my favorite because that's a new place I've never been. Even that Tough Mudder X, which was I think the last mental stamp I have in my mind of when I found a new place mentally and then therefore physically. It was the first Tough Mudder Championships, the first one, and Yancey. It was the first event I'd ever done where you could have a coach. They had the lane right next to the athletes. It was the first time I'd ever done a race with a coach, an expert, somebody I had in my mind in that entity, screaming at me, telling me to go. And so I ended up doing things that physically I thought I couldn't do. And it was this incredible experience. But the miles definitely now, I don't even want to do my 5K, even though I know I need to. I just want to go do another mile. But I'm not going to do that for a while because I haven't trained for 2.5 weeks. I lost 8 pounds because I can't chew anything. So it's just mushy, gooey crap, no activity. And that's why I look so thin right now. But Pickle Rick still looks nice.
But that's the power of not backing away is you get done and you're a different person. You back away and you just have there's a guilt afterwards and this cloud over you, and you don't back away and you break through to that next, you unlock your next level of toughness, and now you're a different person.
I think that's why I'm so excited to do it again.
Yeah, because now, all right,
I've been here before.
I've been here.
Yeah.
And then it hurts again just like that the next time, but you're faster. But that hurt doesn't change much.
Yeah.
Once you get to that point where you're moving that fast, that's what the pain stays. The guys who run 3:43 in a mile and the guys that run 4:53 in a mile are going through roughly the same amount of pain. They're just doing it faster.
Yeah.
And they're more talented. And that's what we deal with.
Yeah. Who said this? It was back when Battle Frog was around. Somebody was talking about how Atkins, that it's not as hard for Atkins or the elites because they're so fit. And it's maybe individual obstacles will not be as difficult to complete. But I believe they're in more pain than you are because they can achieve higher levels of pain than you can. Because if they're that fit, they've gone there and then they've gone beyond and then they've gone beyond over and over. So they are in pain. They are probably in more pain. I don't like comparing pain, but when I want to know an example of a failing experience of one time when you bailed, you didn't make the right decision. I was doing a 5K time trial. I was on a treadmill and it was not going good. 8 minutes in already, I was like, I'm going to crap my pants. And I was hanging on. And the point that allowed me to quit was one of the justifications of, once you hit 2 miles and you break your previous 2-mile PR, which I did, then that's good. That's good. We can just say this is a 2-mile PR and then go. And I did. And I didn't even end up pooping. I went to the bathroom and I was like, what the heck, body? So it was just in my brain. I was really pissed because I wasn't there for a 2 mile. So
right.
You obviously know the disappointed feeling. So what
I've had it over and over and over for years, but the most vivid one to me is the most recent version of this was a year ago on July 4th. It was day 2 of my decision. I'm not walking away from OCR and running yet. I need to do this. This was after I showed up to the Chicago sprint the day after the NBC Super. I was the only one fresh, and I took 5th or 6th place. And 4 of the 5 people who beat me had never beat me in their lives, and they were all doubling back from the day before.
Oh no!
I was just, that's where my fitness was at, and my mental game was at, and it was just miserable. So went on this 2-week vacation with my family. Decided during the vacation, had some heart-to-hearts with myself and my family, and decided, no, I got to know. So that's when I built towards Killington and did all that stuff. But day 2 was July 4th, and it was a 1-mile road race in Wisconsin. And so that's when I did it a year ago. And I ran 4:44, which was the slowest mile time I had run since my junior year of high school.
Slowest.
It's all relative though. Like,
Right,
I ran my
right.
slowest time since I was 17 years old. And more importantly, the first half of the race, you drop 20 feet. The third quarter, you gain 28 feet. And then it's flat to the finish.
Okay.
And at the crest of that, I was in first, and a guy passed me at the top, and I wasn't dead yet. I was hurting, and I decided it wasn't worth it to stay on him because it's just going to come down to a sprint, and that's going to hurt so bad. And I know I could beat him in a sprint anyway. So like, that doesn't prove anything to me. Like, all these things that don't make sense, but make sense in the moment went through my head, and I let him go. And he ran like 4:41 and won the race. And I was like disgusted with myself. So anyways, a year to the day after, 12 days ago at this point, I ran that race again. And I had a lower ab strain. We hadn't talked about this. I thought I got a hernia throughout this process of moving and working. And I did a big training weekend with Kirk. And at the very end of it, I re-aggravated a twinge I'd felt the other day. And for a couple of days, I thought I had a hernia. Turned out it was just a lower ab strain, but that was 4 days before the race. So I didn't run leading up to the race.
Oh, man.
And then the night before the race, I woke up in the middle of the night with my calf cramping up. First time in my life I've ever had a cramp at night. It was just from like working on those floors in that house over there, just like in a weird position for hours, dripping sweat, not replenishing well. And so I just had like every reason why I shouldn't do it.
Like legit reasons floating through your head.
But so anyways, I went and did the race. And same exact thing happened. First quarter mile, I couldn't feel the pace at all. I couldn't tell if we were running 4:29 pace or 5:59 pace. It just felt like I'm running kind of quick, but I don't know what it feels like. It feels easy, but I'm in first place. No one's with me. And then a guy caught up to me, and he ran like a stride behind me for the next quarter. We got to the bottom of the hill. I thought I was all alone. Halfway up, I looked in a storefront window, and he was right behind me. We got to the top, and he went past me. And I looked like the same guy from last year, which means we're probably running 4:44 pace again. And I had the same decision point, but I had told myself I'm in a different place physically. No matter what happens today, I just want to go firewalk it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that. It's Matt Fitzgerald's book. Yeah. Matt Fitzgerald has the book, How Bad Do You Want It?
Okay.
And it just talks about like your mental game. But he says it's firewalking. There's no skill to walking on fire. It's just who keeps their feet on the flame the longest is the best firewalker. Like, you're not born genetically better. There's no like VO2 max for firewalking.
I'm putting this on my Amazon list.
Yeah,
I get this.
Yeah. He's my go-to author. If you want to know about toughness, or if you're struggling mentally, you get How Bad You Want It. If you want to learn about training in general, get 80-20 running. And if you want to learn about weight, you get racing weight. Those are the 3 books. So
is he the one
check
with
them out.
Is it 14 minutes? No. Oh no, that's Salazar. I think I just got a 14-minute running book. It's like, I don't know.
Interesting.
Keep going.
Anyways, so I decided I'm firewalking today. That's my only goal here. I just want to see how much tougher I am than last year and where my fitness is at. Because I was supposed to do my time trial anyways. Thought, let's just jump in a race. So I just said to myself, but to him, whatever you do, I'm doing. Yeah. Like, from here on out, whatever you want to do, let's do this. So he accelerated, and I matched him. And then he backed off a little bit, and I'd keep it going. He'd stay on me. And with like 500 meters to go, we're still right next to each other, and I still can't feel the pace. And I think like we were probably at 4:40 pace, but we picked it up. We might be at like 4:39 pace. I don't know. And he surges again. And I got to that point, I don't know if you've ever been at, where you're hurting so badly and you're so tired of doing what you're doing. Your only options are to back off or accelerate, which is strange, but like you can't keep your stride a moment longer, but you could accelerate for a little bit if you need to. I don't know if you've ever felt that, but I get that in some mid-distance races. Like, I just can't keep this 1 second longer, but I have one more match to burn. I was like, no, screw it. We're going to burn it. And I just, 200 meters, poured it all in, and ended up running 425 and winning.
425.
Yeah, 425. So we were moving way quicker than I thought. But the only reason I was the same thing as you had, like that euphoric feeling of I did it. I did what I wanted to do. I didn't back away. I had like 2 or 3 points in there. I could have quit, but I decided to be tough. And then I was rewarded with a good time, just like you were rewarded with your 457. So, but then, 10 days later, ran the 31-mile race, and it made it, going into it, I felt mentally bulletproof. The 1 mile should have no carryover to a 50K.
Right.
And yet the confidence I had knowing I survived the most intense of moves there, I'm going to grind through whatever move. And it happened. I was strong. My long runs and my training carried me through. I got to 16, 17, feeling like I was at mile 7 or 8.
Wow.
I was clicking, and I ran too hard from 22 to 25, and 26, 27 got really, really bad. And then 28 was just like a 10% mile uphill. I gained 422 feet, and it just like sucked the soul out of my legs. I just didn't have any strength left. But it was like anything else. Like, hey, I'm just going to keep my hand on the flame here, and I'm just going to fire walk right up this hill. And I trying to keep stuff from cramping, but it was the same exact thing. It was the same as the third quarter of that mile race.
This story is so much juicier to me now that I have my own actual experience with a similar experience. And this is why I'm so passionate about trying all these new different things and all over the place. So if we're talking athletically or arts or working in different industries, because all of life becomes more enjoyable because you actually understand the things that are happening around you. Like somebody who outside of the athletic realm, like anytime I'm talking to a friend who's not a friend from OCR or sports, I could not tell them this story the way I could you, because I'd be looking at their feedback the whole time and I'd be like, well, they don't have an understanding of this, so they don't have as much of a respect for it, so they can't enjoy it as much. And so I'm so glad that you took me through that experience, because I 100% have a stamp on that mile for me as the Brakken experience. Because if I would have done that by myself, I've done a track 1 mile time trial before, and I ran like a 5:30 something, and it was not a good experience at all. So
sometimes your first one, you need a guide.
Yeah.
People always say we'll say like, do you really think sports matter? My answer generally is no, sports don't matter, but you can make what comes from sports matter.
Yeah.
Like you running 457 doesn't matter in the world, but the toughness you got out of that and the getting over something miserable in your way directly translates to the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Running a 50K doesn't change me for a better person, but being able to get through a 50K and the things that came up, because it wasn't all pleasant. It was long enough, things got bad at several different times, but getting through those things makes me more likely to be better at being a better person when things come up in real life.
So what you're saying is your next race, you need to raise the level and run through cactus the entire time, right?
That's right.
Right. Because you've already hit this plateau of mental toughness. We need to go through it.
I'd love to hit a plateau of mental toughness where you've just arrived.
Right.
So at this race, the day before the race, the start list came out, and I recognized one name on it, and it was Tyler Siegel. Tyler Siegel is the reigning US trail champion.
Oh, crap.
I don't remember if it was 50K or 50 mile, but it doesn't matter. It's the same title Cody Moat won a couple years ago, that Max King had won several times, that Joe Gray has won. Like, it's the who's who of the trail ultra running, and he won that. He was in the same conference as me in college. He was a senior in my first year, but he was like a 10 or 12 time All-American and national champion.
Wow.
And he's run Olympic trial marathon, and so he was there. So,
I saw your Instagram story. That was freaking hilarious. That's the guy, right?
Yeah.
Brakken posted to his story. Sorry if I just hijacked.
No, it's all right.
But he posted a screenshot of the results, and he circled, what's his name?
Tyler Siegel.
He circled Tyler's name, and he said, I would have beat this guy if I was faster.
Yeah.
It's like,
he's lucky I wasn't faster.
He's lucky I wasn't faster. I would have beat him.
Yeah.
Or I wasn't faster.
So I didn't know if Tyler remembered me, because I was a sophomore in college. It was my first year in this conference. I transferred after my freshman year, and he was the man.
Right.
He won everything from the mile through the 10K. Just did big things. And so the race started off, and like 200 meters in, he's like 10 yards ahead of me. and we weren't running. I went right to my heart rate pace. I knew going off, like I'd run high 6s or low 7s that first mile because my heart rate wouldn't be up yet. So I was running at that. He wasn't running the pace he could run. So I moseyed up next to him. I said, Tyler, right? He goes, yeah, Brakken, right? I was like, oh, okay, cool. I said, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm trying to get a qualifier in for Olympic trials in a couple months, and I don't want to disrupt my training. So I'm just going to get a hard workout in today. I want a good long run. So he wasn't racing. So he was cool about it. And we ended up he ran with me for the first 75 minutes.
Wow.
And we talked about a bunch of stuff. But side note, we were talking about how we both kind of had taken a path that our running peers mocked. Real runners mock the trails,
right,
and mock ultras. And before I went, he said, like real runners don't do obstacles or whatever. I'm like, oh, I run OCRs. Like I watched you on TV. It was kind of cool. Like this guy is, I'm looking up in the clouds at him, but he's watched our sport on TV.
Yeah.
It was kind of a cool realization. But anyways, so Tyler just ran with me and we talked for 75 minutes, and we were going down this switchback descent with a ridge down on our left, and my pack just like poof, opened up. And so I had 2 bottles. I had a handheld 18-ounce bottle, which was just fluids and electrolytes. And then I had a power bottle in back, just basically all my calories, a 4-hour bottle mixed in. And it just went down the side of the ravine.
My God. You ran that without any...
And so I turned around, like, no, and then I dropped my other bottle. I'm like, oh, come on. I said, I dropped my bottle, go, or whatever. And so he decided, I'm just going to go do my own thing now. Right. So he just started running.
Did you circle back and get this?
Immediately.
Okay.
This was 6 miles, 7 miles into we were 75 minutes in with that, whatever. This was probably mile 9.
Okay.
And I went back and started scrambling down it, and it like came up to a rest against a bush, and before it could go on, I got my bottle back, and I couldn't trust it anymore. So I ran with that, and then I went and got my other one, and now I can't see him anymore. So I'm running with both in my hand.
Oh, no.
When we get to the bottom at mile 10, and I work it back in, I take a gulp out of it and then spray some extra out to make it lighter, and I stuff it back in there, get it cinched up, and we hit this boggy section through mud. And as I come out of it, I realized, oh, this feels way too light. I reach back and there's nothing in my pack. And I look around and I have no idea where it is. I'm like, well, this is like that moment in an ultra where like, this is part of the reason I wanted to do this one before Tahoe. I need to be able to like feel things that happen in an ultra, and how do I respond to it? Like the unknowns that I just have no way of knowing about. So we were on an out and back section, like a 5 mile out and back or whatever. And so 6 mile, and I go run, and I decide, all right, I'm going to pound my water. I had 1 extra gel tucked away, and I thought, like, do I save it or do I go into it? And I decided I'm just going to use it and beg off people later on or see what happens. So at the next aid station, I dumped it in it, my gel in as I got up to it, put water in it, and ran the next. And I'd hit my watch as soon as I realized I didn't have my bottle. And we turned around 2.68 miles later.
Okay.
So I decided, all right, so I hit split again. I thought I have 2.5 miles, and then I've got to start looking for this.
Yeah.
And so at 2, now the rest of the field's catching up because it's dual lane here out and back. And I started asking, like, anyone seen a bottle? And they're like, no. And so suddenly a group's like, yeah, there's a blue Solomon bottle back here. I'm like, okay. And then I get to 2.5 and I don't see it. I get to 2.6 and I asked them, and I'm like, you see a bottle? She's like, oh yeah, make sure you go to the right, because in the boggy areas it split around. And so I was going to them and running little loops and trying to, and it was sitting there. So 6 miles later, I found my bottle and continued on with my race.
You're so lucky it happened on the loop.
Oh, it was such a beautiful thing. But anyways, little things like that throughout it, going wrong. And
dude, yeah, that's another complete legit reason. 4 hours of a race without nutrition, yeah, that would be so easy for your brain to be like, nah, it's not my day today.
So as a result, I got to hour 2 without taking a drink out of my 4-hour bottle.
Wow.
And ended up, maybe that's part of why I fell apart the last 3. Maybe it's because I ran too hard, but it was a good learning lesson of, if things don't go totally right, I can stay calm and try to like ease the calories, get back into on the schedule I wanted, but don't try to make it all up that one. It was the learning experience I wanted to have.
Yeah.
And then I ran solo from 75 minutes to, I ended up finishing at 4:14.
Now,
so essentially 3 hours solo.
Now, is the ultra that you're going to be doing, it's in Tahoe, projected to be around that time?
No, it's that
longer,
distance.
Right? Oh, okay.
It'll
but
be.
It's in Tahoe. So
I'm training for 6 hours.
Okay.
6 hours, roughly, give or take 15 minutes, is one of each.
You're probably going to run the full Camelback then.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe, but
why not? Does it bug you or?
Incredibly. I really like the waist feel. I'm going to mess around with something else, or maybe modify that the closure system, but I really like not having something on me, and I can have a second one waiting at transition.
Yeah.
So I only have to make 3 hours before I can swap out.
Oh, is it just 2 laps of the beast?
2 laps of the beast.
Oh, that's nice.
So again, that's why I chose the 50K. It was the duration the distance I'll have to run, but at a duration that it'll damage me, but it shouldn't set me back for a month of training.
Right. Right. That's exciting, dude. This is making me want to do something like this, just because it sounds like a similar, if not exactly the same mental experience as the mile that I fell in love with. And that's so completely out of my realm. It's a nice little booty shot of Lisa right there.
It's my mom.
It's your mom?
I'm just kidding. That's Lisa.
It's like, I don't think
either way,
mom,
inappropriate. Right? Lisa's looking up out of the basement window, and
I didn't hit on her.
She's in little booty shorts up there.
It's a nice shot.
Still,
am I incorrect?
It's a nice shot.
All right.
It's a nice shot.
See, I'm respectful even when I get caught talking about other people. Right.
So, but I did this twofold. I did this process, A, because I had the urge to do an ultra, and B, because one of the areas I really like being able to provide in my coaching for athletes is to say, like, I'm doing what you're doing. I feel your workouts. I react to it. You react to it. Like, I can viscerally feel what you're going through.
Right.
And I haven't been able to say that with ultras for 7 years now.
Well,
2012 was my last.
That's amazing that you've honed in on that, because that was one of the reasons that the mile experience was such a potent memory for me, is because you were able to regurgitate to me my experience as soon as we were done. Mm-hmm. Like, you were like, you made the decisions here and here. I was like, yeah, how the fuck did you know that? So
yeah, and I want that with ultras. I want to be able to provide that, because I have several people who are training for ultras right now, and I trust that I can do it.
Right.
Because I've done it, and I've read hours and hours and hours on ultra training. But I feel like it's like going back to that for continuing education. Like, from time to time, you have to do it again. And it was really nice to get out there and A, feel it again so we can converse with each other about it, but also B, get a good reminder that, like, training's not rocket science. If you do the things that you're supposed to do, it works in a race.
Yeah.
Like, I got through 17 before I felt real effort in that race.
Yeah.
8 weeks ago, I'd get through 9 before I felt like it. You hit the long runs. I raised my volume. I did specific workouts, and it wasn't the fastest 50K anyone's ever run, but it's way better than I could have done 3 months ago.
Right.
And so it was really nice to feel like a plan come together.
Yeah. I was just talking, I was at Victor Quesada's birthday was last week, and I was at his place for his birthday, and was talking with Luke Halterman about training. And I am continuously blown away at the lack of just like a baseline understanding of what the hell you're supposed to do for running training, which is, we're obstacle racing athletes, but we essentially are runners who do lifting and stuff, at least in the current state of the way we have to perform. And I have no particular person to be mad at, but in general, I was upset when I read 80-20 running 4 years into obstacle course racing. I was like, why has no one told me this? This is now the first thing anybody who talks to me about running, whether they're competitive or not, I'm like, the first thing I go to is, I guarantee you are running too hard too often. Stop it. And that's like, and so for my baseline, like the two most important things, if I have to give like a little elevator sum up for somebody like at a party, like I was talking to Luke about it. It's not like I'm a training guru now, but I've studied so much on it that I feel finally very strong foundation of what you should do as a good, strong foundation. And the first thing is always the 80-20 idea that 80% of your volume running wise or cardio development should be in that conversational endurance pace zone, and only 20%, so roughly 2 workouts a week, should be some form of medium to high intensity. And then the other one, what is the other one? Totally forgot what the other one was.
This is a rough elevator pitch.
Hey, I don't have it down.
You got the first half.
What? This is under 60 seconds. It's not super fine tuned.
You're going to be hitting extra floors.
Okay. I've got it somewhat fine-tuned, but not quite yet. It just went out of my head.
When you think about it, I'm going to talk about what you said. It makes you feel any better. I didn't read 80-20 training. I didn't start to grasp aerobic development until my 4th year of OCR. And I ran in high school and I ran in college. And we used to brag in college. And Tyler and I actually just talked about this. He had some similar experience. We used to brag. Oh, he actually had a very good college program. But we talked about in college, we used to brag that race day was our 3rd hardest workout of the week. Like we were so tough. We run so hard, so often. And like we stagnated every year, and we were burned out by the end of indoor season. Like that took me 4 years into OCR to learn what I should have learned as a freshman in high school. Had someone told me.
Somebody asked me, there's a school out in Texas, this private school, and they asked if I would be their track coach. And in my mind, I immediately was like, you don't know a thing about me besides I'm an athlete. Like if I would have said yes, you'd be lucky that I'm educated on running. But and it made me realize the state of people, the general state of coaches who are coaching track athletes in high school. It's like, that's the foundation. That's when you should be learning all of this stuff, not when I'm 27 and just barely figuring this out. Now, it's
not a power sport. It's a 3rd world country of sports.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the trickle down of all the other sports in high school, and we'll take what we can get.
Which ultimately, I'm glad I'm an obstacle racing athlete, because Tyler knew who you were because of obstacle racing, because it's such a sexy sport, I guess, even though
it's visible.
Yeah. But I remember what the other component was. It's the 80-20 running. And then the other one is there is a purpose, a stimulus goal you are going for with every workout. So that I got from Joe Rubio's, which you recommend to me, his middle distance guide to running. Yeah. And in there, he's got just a basic plug-in number system where I used to think, because nobody ever told me otherwise, and actually they did tell me this very clearly, was that if I'm going to do a very standard 400-meter repeat, let's say I'm going to do 8 to 10 repeats, I'm going to have 60 seconds of rest in between each one. I'm not going to cheat the rest, but that was the only specification. So in my mind, it's how hard can I go to where I can last through all 8 to 10 reps? And that was the deciding factor on what pace I was going to go, which that's not, that has a particular role, that type of training, but there's a particular stimulus that you are going for to achieve with each session you're doing. And in Joe Rubio's middle distance guide to running, he clearly points out, look, if your mile is this time, say you run a 5-minute mile, the exact 3 to 4 second range of pace you should be running for your 400-meter repeats or your 800-meter repeats is this. And it's not death. It hurts, but it's not absolute death. And it made me realize there is a particular purpose for each one of these that physiologically I need to be in a particular place in order to achieve, or I'm just digging holes. I'm just racing every time I go and do speed work. And that's been amazing because one, speed work is more enjoyable now because it's not, okay, here we go. It's not just, it hurts, but it's like the appropriate level of hurt. Yeah. It's not just kill yourself.
Yeah, there are very few kill yourself workouts in this world that need to be done. But when they do need to be done, they need to be done.
Right.
But a lot of people think, how fast can I run this for the duration given?
Right.
Rather than thinking, and this is a bit reductionist, but how slow can I run this and still get the intended benefit?
Yes.
And that doesn't need to be, everyone doesn't need to think how slow, but if you have a bit more of that, it's to get the intended benefit.
Right.
And there's a difference between working out and training, exercising and training.
Yes.
Go exercise really hard.
I like that.
But what comes next?
Right.
Training is what comes next. So how does it build?
That is and I'm going to nail this down even more clearly, but that's kind of what I stumbled through with Luke, was my basic 1-2 punch of if you want to get fit, not get fit, if you want to train, and I like that, I'm going to lead with train. You follow the 80-20 rule as long as you're fitting in this realm of endurance sports, and you have your workouts make sense. Like you go to that guide and you just plug in what your numbers are, and it outspits the pace you're supposed to be running for this workout. And it tells you the difference between speed play, speed work, lactic threshold, all the purpose of each one of these. Because when I go to the track, I'm like, yeah, the purpose of me running these is so that I can maintain a faster pace for longer. Okay, yes, but there's different ways of doing that. There's the lactic threshold type workouts, which almost nobody actually understands anyways, because it's such a lucid term. Anyways, I don't know. Do you think that's a good combo, the 80-20
Absolutely.
And then the numbers?
Know the percentage of time you should spend aerobic versus anaerobic, and then know why and what and how you're doing your anaerobic. And that's it.
want to ask you a question. You said anaerobic versus aerobic, which I used to be very clear on. I understand at the core what it means. If I'm lifting heavy weight with a low heart rate, that's anaerobic.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm sprinting for like 60 meters, that's anaerobic. But is it a point in the heart rate of your own personal spectrum where it switches to anaerobic? Because a mile is still aerobic.
That's the thing, right? It talks about where the primary source of energy comes from. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so as long as it's primarily coming from oxygen, it's considered aerobic.
Okay.
That's when people talk high-end aerobic. High-end aerobic has little hints of anaerobic tendrils snaking in, but it's not. You just got
that's consistent.
Someone's doing something up there real serious.
It's good though. Keep going.
Anyways, but the point is, once people understand the percentages of races, what's anaerobic versus what's not anaerobic, it really drives home why you want to train the way you do. So there was I don't think it was in Joe Rubio's, someone's similar guide to middle distance had a chart that they had showed the percentage of anaerobic versus aerobic for every event. And for the 400 meters, it was like,
oh, this sounds familiar. So I think
96% anaerobic for the 400 meters and 4% aerobic. And the 800 meters was like, what was it, like 84% 16. But the mile was like, I'm going to butcher this. The mile was something like
70-30,
like 64-36. And then the 5K was like, by the time you got to the 5K, it was like 90% aerobic, 10% anaerobic. And you suddenly look at that and realize that is why. Now, I'm not a slave to 80-20, but I love the concept of it.
Right.
90-10, 75-25, who cares? It's the principle of it. And that's why that concept makes sense. It's because at the end of the day, the aerobic capacity drives everything we do as athletes, especially our sport.
Yeah.
Because we talk about that redlining death zone of a stadium, and then we mentioned the time 38 minutes. 38 minutes is an eternity.
Yeah.
You basically go past 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can't be primarily anaerobic anymore.
I almost wish we would have started the episode with this or done an entire episode just on this because, well, to help combat the fact that all these things are only clear to me now years and years into athletic training with an attempt at a professional career, whereas recreational people will probably never come across this because it's not their dedicated goal to do this. I want to have like a concise episode where we just talk this criteria and terminology because like you just said, we say redlining and then we do that for like a minimum of 38 minutes. And yet people talk about how they do sprint intervals all the time in the training. I don't remember, not saying that sprinting doesn't have its place, but when was the last time you sprinted in training?
No, I sprint semi-often, but as a skill development, as a piece to my...
Not as your workout time. Not as 20, 100 meter sprint repeats.
No.
Right. Like that has almost, it has, you know, and it's going to be strength work essentially for your legs. But I remember way back before I got into Yancey camp, got a coach and started, you know, working with people like Hunter and Brakken. The amount of 100-yard, not even 100, like I would start from one end of the end zone and just sprint for all hell to the other end. And then try and recover as little as possible and then go sprint another one and just do it until I was dead. Like maybe I had my heart rate up for a while and so I gained fitness from it. But if that were to turn into something I consistently did, it would be a hole digger.
Well, I was just reading about that this week, about the craze of that people think that strength work or high intensity interval work, you know, HIIT training and power training can replace endurance training.
No.
You know, everyone knows that person who says, yeah, well, my buddy off nothing but kettlebell work and goblet squats ran a 3:24 marathon. It's like, well, that's great. Did he do it because of that? Or did he do it despite that?
Right.
Or did he do it, was that his best? Or could he have run for 6 weeks and then done 3:04 or 2:56 or whatever? But everyone has that example why they're the exception to the rule or their buddy's the exception to the rule. But science has proved that high intensity interval training makes you better at high intensity interval training.
Yeah.
But over the course of a season, it just does not make you a better endurance athlete.
Yeah.
If you took someone off the couch, 2 people off the couch, and one person doesn't do anything and one does high intensity interval training, they're going to be the better runner.
Yeah.
But if you take 2 runners and one runs volume and intelligent workouts and one runs 3 times a week and does a bunch of HIIT training, that's just not going to last.
Yeah.
You can get better at that type of workout, but it just can't replace it. It has to accessorize your training. It has to complement it, but absolutely, there is no way around aerobic work.
I think this is why I love and got attracted to endurance style sports when I actually, came out of my shell and really started getting into athleticism, is because you almost can't remain a undeveloped person and
this pipe is still going.
Exceed or continue or last long in endurance sports because of, one, the mental component of things, and two, the intelligence it requires to train correctly for it. Like, anybody can go to the gym and get fit. Anybody can run and start getting fit, but to actually excel in it, it just takes, the amount of information out there is ridiculous, but finding it and finding out which is correct and which is just a load of crap is not such an easy thing. It took me 4.5 years.
Well, and there's a ton of misconception. You talked about wanting to do a terms and a labels episode.
Like redlining?
Say tempo. Ask 100 high school coaches what a tempo run is, or 100 OCR athletes, or poll the top 20 OCR coaches. Say, define a tempo to me. And that there isn't a definition because that's not a thing.
Right.
Define a threshold run. Now you can start getting into it.
Well, yeah, and even that's shaky.
But even that depends on what duration are you talking. And, but so anyways, there's a lot of misconception. There's a lot of jargon, but at the end of the day, it's really, really simple. And people forget that they look to the wrong examples. When they say, I'm a low mileage athlete, or I'm a CrossFit based endurance athlete, or I'm a power based athlete, or I do all high intensity training. I don't do aerobic development. They look to their examples, to their exceptions to the rule of people that don't exist at the highest level. I don't think you can find an example of a world level athlete who runs 5K or longer, who did it on strength training alone, or high intensity training alone, or even low mileage. There's always this debate in the running communities: volume versus high mileage versus low mileage.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah. And people always say, well, there's this person who only ran this, or, Seb Coe only ran 40 miles. You start looking into their volume and you realize, well, Seb Coe didn't always count warm-up, cool-down, or recovery runs in his volume.
Was this in between you and me, or can you repeat what you told me about Hobie College training? Back when Hobie used to talk about how he did like very low mileage with, weight vests and stuff like that. And would you tell me about his warm-ups and his cool downs?
It's true. He might have only run 15 to 20 miles a week, but first of all, he was coming off a decade of 80 to 110 miles per week of running. B, his warm-up is 45 to 60 minutes long. and
somebody's entire workout.
C, he'd be doing a workout where he might only do 6 miles of running, and he'd get onto the spin bike immediately after and do 40 minutes of spin bike work.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of other types of volume in addition to a massive aerobic base.
Yeah.
But again, if you look at the world level, and I feel like the world level, when you get to the top of any sport, myths get dispelled.
Yeah.
You can get by at the local level, but to be truly great, it takes the most talent and the best training. And so that's when you see truly what is pure in theory and what is not. And you don't find low mileage people. You don't find high intensity, low volume. What you find is there's a range of what high volume is. So there's two people that people always talk about, Sebastian Coe and Bernard Lagat. They say they are low mileage, high intensity. But the truth is that Bernard Lagat's low mileage is low for a professional runner, in that in a lot of his track seasons, he averaged 50 to 60 miles per week. And that's extremely low for a 1,500 through 5K specialist.
Like they're more like 100 to 120.
But it's still 50 to 60 miles per week.
Right.
That's still not, by a normal person's definition, low. And Sebastian Coe there's rumors that he trained 30 to 40 miles a week. And then there's training logs that say he ran 80 and 60 to 80 mile weeks, and that he didn't count any recovery jogs or warm up cool down in his volume.
Yeah. Well, and time is never the equation here. Cause like you said, Hobie might have biked for endless hours, but
so if you have two people that the running world comes back to, and neither of them are actually low mileage, like I run 3 times per week and I do heavy lifting, that means it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Ryan Hall has a training guide out that he says, now I might be a little incorrect on this, was what he used to achieve, I don't remember which one of his records or something, but he only ran 3 times a week. And it resulted in higher mileage, but it was still only running 3 times a week. And I don't see how that's possible.
Well, and there's enough. Now Ryan Hall's a unique person because he did run extremely fast and he did run very big volume. And I mean, he was famous for doing, I think in Big Bear at elevation, 8,000 feet, doing 20-mile tempo runs at 6 flat pace, or faster. And so like he always did volume, but he also, once he got to this stage in his career where he just started like coach hopping. Coach. I'm self-coached. He had this statement he got ripped apart for where he said, I'm going to be a spiritual based coach where I'm going to let God dictate my training. He's an extremely religious person, but it's kind of a foolish statement to make. As a religious person, I feel like I can make that judgment that he was waiting for inspiration each day on what to do. And while I fully believe in the power of your own beliefs, I don't believe that when you're planning out your profession, it's good to wait until each day to determine what you're going to do.
And you also have to add clarity, that a little disclaimer of this is after he has worked with lots of coaches and has a massive knowledge base.
This was the tail end of his career. Yeah, at this point, he'd already run 2:04 for a marathon, and so he had already set the U.S. record.
Whether the inspiration is coming from God or some spiritual entity, he still has an obscene amount of knowledge in his mind to structure that inspiration. So whether it was coming from God or some spiritual source, it's not like some guy who woke up one morning and was like, I want to train, and was like, yeah, I'm just going to follow whatever the spirit tells me. It's still a very educated person.
So I don't like making judgments on people I don't know and making blank statements, but I will confidently say that of all the pro runners that have training plans out there, Ryan Hall might be the last person I would choose to follow because he didn't even stick to his own training. And that's
discernment. That's not judgment. That's just discernment.
Yeah. So I'm not saying he didn't do that, but I'm saying that for the vast majority of his career, he definitely did not do that. He was a high mileage marathoner.
Yeah.
And there was no way around that. He has his own training videos and logs to prove that.
No.
And then he flip-flopped a ton towards the end.
No.
Utah. Wrap up with Utah?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't even get to that yet.
Have you seen briefly covered it?
But they switched courses this year. Not even courses, they switched venues. They used to be at the site of an ancient Olympics in Salt Lake City, just outside of it. And now they're at a new venue, which is a mountain, where they have a possibility of 3,000 feet of gain in one run.
Wow.
And so it totally changes the dynamic. This used to be a trail running course with some steep, nasty climbs, to now it is a mountain race.
You think Moat and Hobie are going to show up to that?
Cody will be there for sure. Hobie, you never know with Hobie.
Yeah.
I've given up trying to predict him, but Cody will be there.
You remember what we talked about a while
and
about?
He'll probably win.
Was there any progress with switching from Sunday?
I've heard there is nothing that's been announced that they will switch.
I honestly can't see Joe doing that just for one racer, even if it's Hobie.
I think that if Hobie and Cody had been active the last few years in winning world titles or national championships, they'd be more inclined to do that earlier in the year, switch it. I think it's too late at this point.
Yeah.
But I think they'll try to just sweeten the deal enough with the kids championship to get them to worlds.
The kids championship. Yeah. I definitely think we'll see both of them there. I don't know about Hobie racing.
This course, now I saw an elevation profile the other day and it looked like the course just went like this and then like this. Like it's one giant race to the top and then one giant descent. Those are kind of...
Well, that just benefits John.
Alvin.
John.
Oh, I'm talking Utah.
Oh, I thought about Tom.
No, Utah. Okay. Now, I'm sure it'll be all over the place, but it looks like you mostly climb for the first half and then mostly descend for the second. If that's true, that is a really, really interesting race because it does not reward late stage climbing.
Yeah.
People with fantastic downhills can front load their climbing and rely on their downhill running to separate.
Oh, that's interesting. It almost equalizes the field because Atkins can descend like crazy, but he has late game climbing, but both of those are almost neutralized because the not so great climbers can just deal with it. And then.
Yeah. Now I don't see many people able to match him, but for example, I see someone like Kirk. Kirk is a very, very good descender, but I don't know, like if he can front load his climbs, he might be a top 5 guy, a factor in this race. You have someone like Johnny Lynn Lima. If people can't be out of sight of him by the summit, are they going to be able to hold him off?
I think Kirk's been too busy front loading his chest. A little too heavy there.
A little front loaded.
He's a big fellow.
You have Cody. Cody is a fantastic climber, but he's not, he's a good descender, but he's not the fastest descender.
No.
If it truly is one big long climb, does he have time to get away?
And I start to think about age, the way it's hitting him at this point. You don't descend the same way. And it's been a while since we've seen him hit anything hard.
He's aging the way a normal athlete ages.
Yeah.
We have a few exceptions to the rule in this sport. He's aging the way a normal stud ages.
Yeah.
Where they're still competitive, but they're just not quite the same level of like world destroyer that they used to be at 35.
Do you know anything about NORAM that's coming up?
I do not.
I don't actually know who's going to be there. I don't know VJ is going to be there, and he's going to do great on the 3K.
I'm sure Kempson will go.
I don't know anybody else, but that's just from a lack of knowing what the hell's going on.
I'm sure Atkins will go. They made like 50K there between the two of them last year.
Ridiculous. Those two are freaks.
Yeah. But Utah, I'm really interested to see. You have Rhea has been on fire in the sky running community. She put together some really impressive runs. Can someone like Lindsay, hold her off? Can Nicole descend on that kind of stuff? I don't know if we've seen all three of them on fire in the same mountain race before.
That almost never happens. One of them falls apart.
Well, usually it's technical or it's smooth, but whatever it is, it goes to one strength of the other. I'd love to see a course where all three of them are packed up.
Yeah.
They're almost never packed up.
Right. Nothing can change between anything else in the ranking that's substantial to the first and second. Like even if Rhea won, she's still stuck in.
She'll move up though. Alyssa's in third, Rhea's in fourth. Those
Hawley's in third?
Unless it's reversed. Alyssa Hawley's top four for sure.
That I have been paying very little attention apparently this year.
Well, she hasn't done anything spectacular yet, but she hasn't done bad at anything. Yeah. Huh. Rose is still top 5 or 6.
She's fifth right now.
And she's still, living at altitude in Colorado, running this kind of stuff. With her speed, she should be able to descend.
Before we end things, what do you have to do to make sure you walk away with the stadium? You're not walking, but what do you have to do to lock in the stadium series?
So right now, I am 36, I believe, 36 points down from Isaiah in second. And it's 36 points more for first place than it is for second. So going in, I'm basically one position behind Isaiah, first to second.
Yeah.
Going to Fenway, which is like 5 months from now. If I beat Isaiah and he takes second, if I win and he takes second, we are totally tied and even going into the last race of the year.
Okay.
And so if he beats me in any race here on out, he wins it. If I win out, I win it. Brian Kent wins out and something else happens, he can win it, but I have to beat Isaiah. He still can.
You and Isaiah would both have to be off the podium on the next 2 races right away.
I don't think so. I think we can kind of switch. If we each take one and hurt each other with points, I think he can.
I think Jack said almost no matter what, barring something insane happening with you two,
but realistically,
the best he could get is second.
Whoever wins out wins, basically.
Right.
But if I win this next one, I'm back in the driver's seat.
Nice. Hell yeah, dude. Well,
it's the best I could ask for. I owe Victor Quesada, if you're listening, I owe you dinner for sneaking in and beating Isaiah.
Dude, that
makes
ridiculous.
things that I needed help at some point.
Yeah.
I needed to put 2 people between myself and him at some point, and Victor did it in the very first race I needed it. So
perfect.
That makes my job a little bit less stressful. He controls here on out essentially, but I finally control my own future where I don't need help.
Right.
As long as I take care of my business, I can win the series again.
Oh yeah, man. That's exciting. And for me, I'm in 5th. Jack is in 6th. And I'm 2 points ahead of him, which there's not much points. Oh, shoot. Battery's about to die. Let's wrap this up real quick.
Not more points. Finish the shot.
I'm going to beat Jack. End of story. By the way, I'm 5th already. So if I get 5th, then Jack has to dance half naked singing Shania Twain's I Feel Like a Woman. And he's got to post it. And that's what's going to happen. So eat it, Jack. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
See you next time.
Visit ObstacleDominator.com for show notes, training, and racing resources. And leave your question for Beni and Brakken.